Hi, my name is Felicia Margolano, and I am going to discuss my mind map. I started with in the middle literacy because obviously this needs to be about how I feel I developed as a literate person. I then thought about two different avenues of my life in which I thought thoroughly developed me as a literate person. First, I thought about my home life and my personal experiences, and then I thought about my education. But really, they sort of coincide together and a lot of them become connected in different ways. First, I'll start with home. I contribute most of my thought process of how I'm a literate person to be my mother. Although we may have different viewpoints of what is good quality reading, she is the one that developed me as the reader that I am today. I remember thinking back to when I was really little and we would read together and we would read picture books, or as I got older, we would read novels together. But first, I remember, even though there's probably a lot more books, I remember going into first grade, and my first grade teacher was really into penguins, which I think is silly, but that was her thing. And we would read all different types of penguin books, and then I would go to class because I love to talk, and I would talk about the different books with my teacher in which I read, especially if they had to do with penguins. As life went on, and I started to become more of an independent reader of my own without actually reading with my mom, I started to really get into mystery novels and things like that. So in sixth grade was really when I think the love of education, even though I've always really wanted to be a teacher, really flourished. And I do contribute that part of me to my sixth grade teacher, which is over in the education section. But I think she's the one that really started to gear some of my reading into more, um, I would say, more enjoyable and better reading as opposed to just a picture book. So that's why I have pictures of The Secret of the Old Clock for Nancy Drew novels. Then I went into Agatha Christie and so forth. Um, I also was really into writing because I did like to talk, and I always actually got in trouble for talking a little bit too much. But my teachers always told me to continue to write these things down. So I started to keep journals and things like that. But then as technology advanced, I got into blogging a lot when I was in middle school, more so, up into high school and a little bit of college. And actually, while I was in high school, I was published into a book with my poetry. So that's sort of why I put poetry right in here, but also led to my education. I did go to Rowan University for my undergrad for teaching, and I took a lot of writing classes. I have a bachelor's in writing, which I think also contributed to my love of reading and writing because I had to read a lot of novels and things of that nature and then write about them. But I also got to do some poetry classes and things like that. Um, Kind of stemming back to my elementary days when I had sixth grade, I also, besides love reading, I also loved writing, and I actually won a contest in sixth grade where I had to write an essay about how I could help our environment and things that I did and what I would like to do. And I actually got to go on a trip for a week with with a couple of other students, and we got to go to a 4-H fair and we got to learn about how to recycle and things like that. So besides winning a poetry contest, I won an essay contest as well. And I think all of these things sort of contributed to what ultimately is now I would hope to stay my job, my career, my everything for the rest of my life. I work for East Greenwich Township Schools, where I was first hired as a writing teacher. I was the only sixth grade writing teacher. So even though I taught primarily sixth grade writing, we had to read and then write about what we read for a lot of the things that we've done. When you look at the Common Core standards, that's what they're asked to do. They're asked to analyze and synthesize information. So that in itself, I'm learning every day what would be appropriate to read, how would we analyze it, how would we construct our paragraphs, how would we be able to develop our thoughts and be able to express those ideas properly. And then a couple years later, now I teach reading and writing, and I can definitely connect those ideas and those strategies and things to further develop who I am as a reader or writer, and as well as my students. And I continue to read books with my students, especially if someone is really into a series or something like that, and then we can discuss those ideas. But then also going to professional developments, finishing up my master's degree, things of that nature to continue being a literate person myself and continuing to develop my love of reading and writing. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening.